Hi, Cliff Sewell again. Welcome to the Magical Mindset Podcast. Now, today's an interesting one for me personally, because my guest today, a lady called Lisa Walker. Lisa Walker is a coach. She doesn't call herself a counsellor. We'll talk about that throughout the podcast. But Lisa comes with so much knowledge, so much passion, and so much compassion in the work she does, working with individuals of all sorts of backgrounds and things to go through personal challenges. And we have to be really honest, on day one or on moment one of this podcast, I personally work with Lisa. Lisa's helped me over a number of months and over a number of years get through some real challenges, and she's been an amazing support. So here I am. I'm running the podcast about mindset. I coach elite level people. Yet here I am absolutely openly saying, yeah, I've got a lot of vulnerability and I need help. And I've no shame in saying I work with Lisa on a regular basis to help me get through challenges that you just need help from. So no problem there. So really looking forward to this one.
That was the turning point for me. I finally found something that I actually loved, and that was working with people. I'd always been involved with people, even when I was doing finance. The bits that I loved most were talking to people and actually dealing with the personal side of things, I suppose. Oblivion and ignorance are easier sometimes, particularly where addiction is concerned and unhealthy behaviours where they're concerned. The simplicity of, you just need to talk more, Cliff. You just need to reach out. There's no just, because if it was that easy, people would be doing it.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
It is. I often shouldn't give the time of day because people could be watching this at all times, but it is morning.
It is morning.
It is a morning, and thank you for coming along. We were just talking before we started the recording about how we're going to structure this. I think the question is what are you going to ask me or what we're going to talk about?
Something like that.
Now, on many of my podcasts, there is a great deal of prep goes in, and so I understand, because people have got a story to tell. They've maybe got a book they've published, or they've got something happening. That's not what today's about, because we have to be, and I think it will become really clear as we go through. You and I have known each other for a long time.
A very long time, probably more than 20 years.
It's 20, I think.
It's 25.
Yeah, I think you might be pushing 30, but let's not go there. We've known each other for a long time, and we've been on, and our stories have gone together, collided, and then gone in separate directions, and then back together again. And I think we're safe to say we are both very different people than we were when we first met. Well,
yes.
Well,
definitely.
I certainly am.
And I definitely am.
Yes,
yeah, definitely.
So what's the reason I was really keen to get you onto the podcast, and I have a very, very definite, clear plan that you will be on a more regular basis. This is not just a one-off. And hopefully as we talk, and we'll talk very openly, it will become clear why you're here, what we're talking about, and I think you can offer people who watch the podcast, people who follow the podcast, I think as we go through, you'll be able to help them and give them all sorts of bits of inspiration and ideas as we go through. But let's start with, let's give you a chance of introducing yourself a little bit.
Okay.
Because I know I'm going to call you, I know what I class you as, what you do as a job or as a living now. I use the wrong word all the time. We'll get to that. If you don't mind, so people can build a picture of who you are.
Okay.
Tell us the Lisa Walker story. Of how you've got to where you are today, who you are, a bit about childhood, a bit about life, so that we can bring you to life a little bit.
Okay, so it's a reasonable story, as we all have. So I'm originally from Sheffield. I was a very unconfident kid, I think it's fair to say. Not a great childhood, if I'm absolutely honest with you, and it's one of the reasons I do what I do now. I went into work not really knowing what I wanted to do, had lots and lots of jobs, learnt lots of things. Quite often how not to treat people. That was quite a good thing, certainly in my early roles. And
as in how you treat people, or how people treat you?
How people treat me,
yeah.
And other people around me. I was always very aware of other people and how they were being treated and how they felt. That became more important doing what I do now. I didn't realise quite how sensitive I was to other people until much later on. It was just something that I was aware of, and I did. So throughout my early careers, I did a whole host of different things, whether that was admin, whether it was working in finance, whether it was, I even did a stint in sales for a little while. That was terrible. And over the years, like I said, didn't really know what I wanted to do until I think I met you when I was still working in finance, and then you got me a job,
Did. I remember.
and then which was brilliant when I went to work at Gremlin. Actually, that was
yeah.
fantastic. That was back in 1996 when I first encountered you, and also working in recruitment. So from then on, I then ended up continued in finance, ended up working for you at Sewell House, and then when things changed a little, I actually went into HR, working for Sewell House and working for yourself. That was the turning point for me. I finally found something that I actually loved, and that was working with people. I'd always been involved with people, even when I was doing finance. The bits that I loved most were talking to people and actually dealing with the personal side of things, I suppose. So from there, I worked as your HR manager for 13 years. And then when I left there, when I was made redundant and things changed at Sewell House, I decided I wanted to set up on my own. So that was in 2012. I set up on my own. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be fair. And it was at that point I thought the only thing I could do was to be a HR consultant. So that's what I started off doing. And the story goes that I literally spent 18 months behind a computer screen, not really having the confidence to shout and tell anybody what I did. Not really having the confidence to actually believe that I could even do it. I got some bits of work, and I recognised that something needed to happen for me. So you may recall, actually, throughout the time at Sewell House, I do remember you and other people saying that I was the conscience of the business quite a lot of the time. So I always had this kind of sensible kind of point of reference, if you like. So that stuck with
I
me.
think to put some context around that, and yeah, you were known as that, but I think to put some context around that, Sewell House as the business, that was a rapidly growing, super successful recruitment
Yes.
business,
Yep.
and it was sales driven, and everybody in those rooms were sales driven,
Yep.
and it was about doing deals, and it was hard, but it was successful but hard, and so the agenda was all about numbers, numbers, numbers,
Yes.
fees, fees, fees. You did sit in a strange place because you were the one person who often had to challenge that, and we'll talk about how you used to challenge me. But you had to challenge that. But just before we go back, I just want to go back to pick up on something before you talk about what you're doing today. You talk about without your career, you've always been interested in looking at people, how
Yes.
people treat each other.
Yes.
One of the things I know we'll talk about is where we all end up being comes from our childhood, and a lot of our issues, positives and negatives, come
Yes.
from our childhood.
Absolutely.
And I throughout my life, it took me a long time to realize a lot of my issues came from my childhood. My childhood, I'm very open about it, wasn't brutal, but it wasn't fabulous by any stretch of the imagination. Go back to your childhood. And in those early days, is there any key things that you would think about now that you've now learnt about yourself in your childhood that other people that you could almost point to and other people could look at and go, that was me in childhood, and that's why I act like I do?
Oh, so many. Yeah, it's the one thing I've worked on. I think the very first time I ever really worked on myself was in probably initially in the year 2000, way back then. So I recognised there were some things I needed to deal with. Didn't really know where to begin. A lot of it was, as I say, was from quite some deep-rooted trauma from childhood. And to be honest with you, I kind of dipped my toe in the water, but it was terrifying. To discuss things that you've never, ever discussed ever before is really terrifying. So I had and have had experience of counselling, psychotherapy, some coaching as well, but it's all formed who I am, what I do, and my approach to all of that kind of work. So I am always open. There's a place for counselling, there's a place for psychotherapy, there's a place for coaching. And it's wherever you're at the time as to which one suits you best. So for me, I had some amazing experiences in that kind of therapy environment, if you like. I also had some pretty shocking ones as well. So you do have to kiss quite a few frogs I believe anyway, in the therapy world. So
I was going to call you a counsellor, but you tell me off when I call you a
No.
counsellor. And so not who are you, because we know who you are. What do you do today? How would you describe what you do today, and who do you help?
Okay, so now what I do is I coach people. Now, the word coach, it could mean 101 different things. So I call myself a personal development coach. I've been called a transformational coach. I've been called a life coach. I've been called a business coach. I've been called a confidence coach. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care what people call me. As long as it's polite, I really don't care. Because what I've learned is that I meet my clients where they're at. So if they need work on their confidence, they might not even know it, but if that's what they get from it, that's what they will refer to me as. When I work with people, and if they've got a fledgling business or they've got what I call a heart-centered business, where they might be struggling to actually put their business head on, or maybe they don't think that they've even got a business head. When I work with them, they will call me a business coach. So I think I eventually settled on personal development coach. But like I said, for me, I don't get hung up on the title. The reason I say I'm not a counsellor is because I don't have counselling qualifications. Counselling, I did look into it before I became a HR manager, actually. I looked at the time back in 2006. I was having some very, very effective psychotherapy myself, and I even considered taking a psychotherapy qualification. And in the end, I took my HR exams instead. Very, very different, but it fitted with where I was at the time.
Is it that different?
Um, yes, because HR is very much about, it can be, there's certainly a huge part of it that's about policy and procedure. And interestingly, when I became a HR consultant and realised I got to do all of that, I hated that side of it. I hated the policy and procedure side of it. And what I recognised was, working as a HR consultant, you get all of that because it's what other businesses don't want to do. They don't want to sack people. They want someone else to do it for them. They don't want to put an employee handbook together or dismiss people and do disciplinaries. And it was so negative, and it absolutely sapped all life from me.
This is an awful admission. We got Sewell Morehouse to be a big, powerful business.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember whether we had an employee handbook. We did, didn't we? But I think that will come. We'll talk about that in a moment. That's a reflection on me,
Yeah.
on how on earth.
It was my first ever employee handbook that I did, and
Yeah.
it was extremely informal, really. But it was trying to nail down some policies and procedures from your mind that you were happy with, that you weren't going to change your mind about too quickly,
Right.
and to give some sort of formality to
So
it.
are you suggesting I had a habit of changing my mind quite a lot?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll,
I learned a lot.
we'll go to that. Okay. So you said you settled with personal development coach.
Yes.
That's what you said.
Yes.
And now this is where part of my podcast is, what we want is transparency and honesty. I class myself as a personal development coach, and I deal with elite level people, elite level business leaders, elite level sports people, and people who were just trying to finalize that 1%.
Yep.
That's where I spend my coaching time. However, I have no shame in admitting, I think this is and I shouldn't have any shame in admitting, and I'm very open in admitting, that I had some, over the years, coming out of alcoholism and serious mental health issues. But everybody thinks, oh, Cliff's okay now. But even in recent years, I've had some real challenges, privately, personal things. And I reach out to you, and you have, so I'm a coach, but the work you've done with me has been unbelievable. I couldn't have done the work you've done with me for somebody else.
Right.
I couldn't do that. And that I'm very open to admit
And
that.
you can't do it to yourself either.
No.
So I'm a huge believer that as anyone that is doing the work that we do, even though it might differ in terms of delivery and audience and subject matter, we need support. You can't. There will be people that you will speak to that will trigger things in you. There will be you will have a reaction, and you need to be able to handle that. And sometimes that's sometimes where other types of therapy can come in really handy. It's one of the reasons why, as a counsellor, when you're a qualified counsellor, you have to have what they call supervision, and it's for the same reason that I think, for me, every person that is in a coaching environment really needs to be supported by a coach themselves. So I've had all sorts of different types. I don't have a regular coach, but I am constantly reflecting, looking back, actually looking at myself, and also then working out who I need to be speaking to and what do I need to
We
be
all need
doing.
somebody, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I
Absolutely.
think
Yeah.
that's one of the key things that I think we will keep repeating
Mhm.
as you come back on. I, like I say, I'd got myself sober, and through whatever reasons, and then I'd gone into a very, very dark place mentally, and I got myself through the other side, and I genuinely believe that I was on the right track, but I had personal issues, and my biggest fear was I was going back to those
Mhm.
dark days again. And I'm very, very proud that even when it got really hard for me, I never went back to drink again. People say, well, you've been sober so long now, you'll never think about drinking. I think about drinking every day.
Mm.
And anybody who's come out of sobriety and says they never think about drinking anymore, I'll look at them and go, I think there's something amiss there, because I do. Would I drink? No. But it's always there.
Mhm.
But I got into a dark place. But I think the point I want to get to now, and I'm very strong on this, and I have to be very careful how I word this sometimes. I hear the noise out there. Now, so we're going to talk about men and women, how they deal with different things. So I'm just going to just talk about men to begin with.
Mhm.
There is this constant noise out there. Men, you've got to talk. You've got to reach out. If you get dark, you've got to talk. You've got to talk. Yes, I get it. It's obvious. But it's just
Oh,
the
absolutely.
words
Yeah.
don't mean anything.
Yeah.
And I was now I was, and I try not to use the word look, but I guess I was. I'd got to a place I thought, I'm going to reach out to Lisa, and we've talked about this as well.
Mm.
Yeah, and that was really hard for me, because
Mhm.
I'm supposedly on the up and
Mm.
up, and I'm an elite coach, and I'm this, and
Mm.
I'm whatever, and I'm sober, but I was breaking again. But I had to reach out to you. That was so difficult. But we're just asking, and I live in this world now, so I know how hard it was for me. But for other, we'll just talk about men to begin with. It is just telling men they've got to reach out. I just think we've got to just start changing that wording, because they're not going to.
No, and it's interesting because just going back a little bit, I will come back to that. Just going back a little bit, you asked me earlier who I work with. So I predominantly work with professional women. However, I have a number of male clients, quite a few at the moment actually, and there is I see the difference when I work with them. It's not. It's not that black and white, but there are subtle differences. Often when I work with men, they come to me with very specific reasons, usually around career, usually around the role that they're playing. When I work with women, I've had a number of women that come to my consulting room. They will sit down and say, I don't really know why I'm here, but I know I need to see you. Or I've been recommended to you, but I don't know what I'm going to get from you. I don't think anyway, a guy's never been to see me and actually said that. However, it's interesting because once we get working, it's pretty much the same. The only difference I do sometimes find is that with some of my female clients, we can have an hour and a half session. And I will extend the sessions. Usually, when I'm working with guys, an hour is more than enough. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a bit like muscle in that it's just something that they've not worked either before or for a long time. I don't know. I try really hard not to stereotype. I try to be as open as possible. However, there are some subtle differences. But going back to what you said about how we need to change the language, I have a real issue generally when people say you just need to talk, you just need to do this. I see it in the coaching environment. I see it all the time on social media. Oh, if you want to earn six-figure number, you just need to do this. You just need to apply this. And I genuinely believe where our emotions are, which let's face it, they're involved in everything. There is no just about it. I spent most of my early adult life, right up and probably up until the last couple of years actually, being told, and I had real issues with food and real issues with my weight. And I was told on so many times by well-meaning people, you just need to eat less, move more. Oh, no shit, Sherlock. I'd not thought about that.
Right.
It's one of the worst. And so I do understand what you're saying. The simplicity of you just need to talk more, Cliff. You just need to reach out. There's no just, because if it was that easy, people would be doing it. So for me, my take on the work that I do, the talking therapy, whatever you want to call it, is there is no just. I know how difficult. I can see people on some of my workshops that I aim at business women, and they are so revved up. They want to see me. They tentatively reach out, and even with women, it can still be very, very. These are successful women at boardroom level, and then suddenly they're having to come to someone like me and they might not be really clear about why they're doing that, but they know they need something. So, and again, there's no just. And I always say to them, it's one of the hardest things. I've had people cancel before. Not many, thankfully, because I will contact people, excuse me. But I know that it starts to wind down, the interest starts to wane, and it's fear. So fear kicks in. The moment fear kicks in, the ego kicks in and goes, no, we don't want to do that. We're not doing that. We're not going to talk about what's going on. So I think it does happen to women as much as to men. However, I think, generally speaking, society-wise, it's not being the done thing for men to do, to talk about their feelings.
Right. So I just want to go back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very open here to be honest and open. So, as I say, I got through college. Then I find myself in a difficult place again. So I make contact with you as a bloke who supposedly is right, but is going wrong again. And I'm quite happy for you to be very open about what you were thinking. But I think what would be really useful here, I think it will be useful, is that I'm also happy for you to be able to go, that's the phone call you got from me recently or not too long ago about where we were.
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite happy for you to compare that to the Cliff you used to know, the crazy drinking, absolutely erratic Cliff, and I think I am a very different person there. When I rang you,
Yeah.
was it really obvious to you where the problem was, or did you feel straight away, right, I know what to do with him here?
A little bit of both, if I'm honest. So for a long time, I have wanted to work with you on that kind of, just to be able to help you for a long time. It sort of happened even when I was working for you as HR manager. We used to have conversations, and yes, it was usually when you'd had quite a bit to drink. But we would have those conversations, and so I knew. This sounds extremely complacent, but I knew what a lot of your issues were already.
I was just about to say that, and the reason I bring this up, because this may resonate with other people, men or women, whatever, who think it's all going well. And I will be honest, back in the day, and whether I was drunk, I don't know, but I thought everything's fine, we're good. I think if you were honest, you could say you could see the crash coming.
Oh, I don't know whether I could. I look now, and yes, it was obvious at the time. I guess part of my role was a bit of a firefighter, and so you would create the fire, and it was my job to put it out. That's how I felt very responsible. But on a personal level, and as a friend, I could also see that that's where there was always going to be a need for that. Now, was I expecting you to contact me when you did? No, because we'd not been in touch for a little while. How did I feel about you getting in touch? I was absolutely delighted. And not just because it was good to be back in touch, but actually, and this is where it is a bit weird, but I felt confident that I could actually help you. I felt really confident that I was the right person to help you.
Why?
I don't actually, because I knew you so well, and because it's something that I'd wanted. As I say, I'd kind of done it, but I don't think you realised it, but it's I was just doing what I love to do, but with somebody that I really wanted to help. So a lot of what I do is about for people to literally get the best out of themselves. That's what I realised is that's where my passion is. That's what's so important. So and that's why I work with so many different types of people, because it doesn't matter where you're at. It's about you being the best version of you, and so I know what you've got to offer the world, and to hear you in the place that you were at and what you'd been through, and to know a lot of it as well. I see that as I can step in and help. There's something about understanding somebody. It's about the relationship. So whenever people say to me that they want to coach or they want to work with somebody in a kind of therapeutic setting of any sort, for me, it's about the relationship. It's about the relationship between the person you're working with, and they have to like you. Now, some people might say, oh, no, it's not about being liked. You have to be... I have to know that the person I'm working with gets me and I get them.
Is it like, or is it respect?
I think it may be a little bit of both, because for me, I think respect works for some people. Yes, you need to be respected. I actually would go as far as to say that for me, I think I would find it, and I have had this, it's quite difficult to work with someone you don't like. Because it means so much to me. I want the very best for them. I become that person's biggest cheerleader. Now, not all coaches work like that. I totally understand that. And so I know that I am a little bit different to the way that a lot of professional coaches work. And I make no apology for that. I work the only way I know how to work, which is to get to know the person and to, I guess in some ways, to emotionally invest in them quite heavily. Now, some coaches would be absolutely appalled by that. That's fine. They have a different model to the one that I have. The other thing that I do, that I now recognise, having been doing this for 10 years and some, is I work quite intuitively. Now, some people don't like that. They don't like that word. It's all a little bit woo and a little bit fluffy. But again, I don't care, because I know that it's what goes on. Gut instinct is hugely important to me when I'm working. Sometimes I say things when I'm working with somebody, and I'm sure I've done it with you, and I think, wow, that's impressive. That was quite wise. Where did that little nugget come from? Or worse still, someone repeats something back to me. It could be years later. Someone said to me yesterday, I remember you telling me, and then they said something, I thought, wow, that's impressive. Don't recall that at all. And it's not that I didn't say it. It's just that it was what's happening at the time, and it just feels really natural to me. So did I treat you any differently? No. Other than the fact that had I been waiting for that call? No, I don't think I had. But I can't say that I certainly wasn't disappointed at all. I was pleased when you did actually make that call. Like I said, it sounds very complacent, but I was confident that I was the right person to actually make a difference.
And you've made a huge difference. So let's just try and take that. And this is an impossible question for you. So here it comes.
It won't be the first time.
Yeah. Oh, no, it won't be. Yeah. Right. So there will be, and I'm still on professional, middle-aged, whatever man world here. And that's, yeah, I guess that's where I am. Instead of just saying to men who are succeeding, not succeeding, troubles with alcohol, relationship, we'll talk about relationships in a moment. Can you, rather than just saying, reach out and talk to people, you know, I've written a book, I've got another book coming out, and I'm obsessed with habits. If I'd not created my habits, you know, I often almost ridiculously say, becoming an alcoholic was possibly a really good thing for me to do, because it taught me that I had to put habits in to become sober, and now I live by those habits, get up at ridiculous times in the morning, whatever. So I've got those habits in. But what message can we get across to individuals, and I'm talking about men at the moment because that's real, where we can start moving the dial a little bit towards where we can help? Because the stats are horrifying, and they're going to continue to be horrifying until we start finding a way. I'm not putting you on the spot to give the golden answer. No, I was lucky I could reach out to you, and we've talked about, and that was hard for me, but I knew you, and I think the important thing, I knew you well enough that you weren't going to judge me. And I think that was really important. That's how I was able to reach out, because you weren't going to judge me. How do we try and encourage other people, men at the moment, to start on the process, even before they reach out? What do we do?
I think it's a process of understanding yourself. It's understanding where you're at, and it's a big one, because oblivion and ignorance are easier sometimes, particularly where addiction is concerned and unhealthy behaviours where they're concerned. However, it's understanding where you're at and acknowledging to yourself that you need some help. That's not that easy to do. But
so easy to say, but it's so hard to do.
But there's also something about, and this will stick in the throat of some people, but it's about taking some responsibility. Responsibility is I would say, probably the linchpin of all the work I do. So I can talk to my clients, I can talk to you, I can talk to anybody until the cows come home. I like talking. I'm also very passionate about what I'm talking about. But if the person I'm speaking with doesn't choose to take any personal responsibility, I might as well be talking into a vacuum, because I can't do it for them. So, and this is the hardest bit, I think, when we are desperate. I've been there. When we are desperate, it's taking that first step. And what does that look like? And there's something about, and again, harsh but true, we've got to get over ourselves. We've got to get over the fact that we think we're sorted. No one is sorted. No one. And so you've got to literally get out of your own way and you reach out, whether that's Samaritans, whether it's a friend, whether it's another organisation that you know about, whether you pay for a therapist.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
Sorry. That will be one of the key headlines that people will sit and think about or say, it's all right for you. I can't afford a therapist.
It's interesting,
and
actually.
You know, it's a very valid point. Therapists are not cheap.
No, they're not cheap.
Or should they be?
No. And interestingly, so I'll just give you a little personal example. So back in 2006, my life had turned upside down. I'd become a single mum to a 3-year-old, which I wasn't expecting. My dad had just died, all within the same month. It was just... my life was in turmoil. At the time, I think I was earning something. I was doing an admin job, which was when I was working for you before I became HR manager. And I was doing an admin role. I was working 4 days a week, I think I was at the time, and earning not a lot of money, if I'm honest. I knew I was literally about to spiral, and I needed to take some control of my life. There was so much that was happening that I had no control over. And I remember calling. I don't even know where I got the number from, because it was back in the good old days of probably not really. There was internet, obviously, but, it wasn't as literally on my phone. And I called somebody, and I called a psychotherapist, and I was terrified. But the biggest thing was I didn't have much money. I was a single mum. I was paying the mortgage on my house. It was the most important thing. I was going through a divorce. And it was £45 for an hour. It was the best £45 I ever spent. And I don't know what it was that made me think I need to do this. But there's a saying that I often use, which is, in order to make changes, the benefits of those changes have to outweigh the pain that not making the changes inflict. That makes sense?
Yep.
And I got to that point. And yes, I absolutely agree that I'd had free counselling in the past. It didn't work for me. So I'd gone down the NHS route. I'd waited months and months and months. And yes, it was well-meaning, but just not for me. I needed something different. So rightly, wrongly, when it happened, I don't know. I just knew I needed, trust me, you knew me back then. I was nothing like the person I am now, not at all. But something in me told me, self-preservation, maybe, I don't know, but I needed to do something. I still now see so many people, friends even, that they'll say to me, "Oh, I need some therapy of some sort." Oh, I'm not paying for it. I don't understand that. It's probably something actually that I got from you, working with you and knowing you as long as I have done. You are worth it. Really, really, it's really hard when we're at our worst and we feel worthless. That is exactly the time we need to remind ourselves how much we're worth it. And whether that's taking stock of where you are spending your money. The other thing as well is find out how much it costs. You will tell yourself a story that you can't afford it, but most people have no idea how much it costs. You will tell yourself a story that you can't afford it and that actually it's not a prayer, but have some fact behind it, because that's all based on emotion. It's not based on fact. So get some facts first and foremost. Then find out if you know of a specific therapist or coach that you want to work with. Maybe they have a scholarship program. Maybe they do something where actually they can give back. Who knows? In the past, I've worked with people for literally a fraction of my usual rate because I see something in them. And it's one of the reasons why I love doing what I do, because it allows me to choose. It's why I work for myself. I can choose who I help. It's not always possible. I get that too. However, it's one of those things. If you really want to help yourself, you can find a way. And it might be, there are lots of organisations out there that offer free assistance as well. So Mind, they offer a self-referral system for people that are really struggling with mental health. But I also recognise that we trip ourselves up along the way. So money is one of the biggest and easiest excuses. And that might seem harsh, but it is an excuse. I've made it myself. It's one of those excuses that actually I can't afford it. What we really mean is I'm really frightened and I don't want to even go down.
Do you think it is fear?
Absolutely.
Is that where you put it?
Absolutely. I genuinely believe, and I can't remember where I got this from, but I genuinely believe when everything comes down to it, there are two places that we come from. Every decision we make, every action we take comes from fear or love.
Right.
And anything that's got a negative to it, where you're holding yourself back, where you're playing small perhaps, or you're feeling not great, that's coming from fear. Anything, if there is a resistance to something, fear. So when I'm working with people and they're reluctant to try something, maybe I've made a suggestion that to change some behaviour, where there is a resistance, there is a fear. Understanding what the fear is part of the process, really. So yes, money always is going to be an issue for some people. But this is where it comes down to only you've got to have that conversation with yourself. Is it really an issue? Do I know how much it's going to cost? Have I exhausted every avenue in actually finding a way to make it happen? Or is it just that I don't want to begin because it's scary?
I think a phrase I heard a long time ago, and it is so very true, is that nobody's going to come and save you.
Exactly.
And
No,
nobody's
no.
ever going to get me sober. Nobody was going to
No.
ever get me. I remember talking many times. I am depressed. I'm this. I'm mentally. No, I was hungover. Literally, let's not hide from this. And then you get sober, and then that does highlight the problems, because you've got 50, 60 hours a week more thinking time where you're not drunk. But
you've also got to, I imagine, you've also got to relearn actually how to live, because the life that you lived previously is no longer there. And interestingly, and you may disagree with this, but whilst I have never had an addiction to alcohol, over the years I've had a very unhealthy relationship with food. And I have always recognised somehow, again, it's one of those instinctive things, that there are some huge similarities between having a really unhealthy and diabolical relationship with alcohol and with food, because you have to learn once you start to change your habits, once you start to change your behaviours, something has to fill those gaps.
Yeah.
And that in itself can be terrifying.
It's the void.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the void.
Absolutely.
And it's dry January. I'm not opposed to dry January or sober October or whatever. And fine, yeah. But it's not the first 30 days, you've almost got the motivation to do it because you can still remember the pain of hangovers or the carnage, of course. It's day 60, 90, 120, where you've got this void, where you sit there and go, well, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Just go back to, we'll talk about something else in a moment, but just go back to, and I've not prepped for this, I don't know what your answer's going to be. When you've got to start on this process, you go like, I need help. I think I am addicted to YouTube, and I do. I love YouTube. I think there's so much content on there. I think there's fabulous content on there. If somebody says to me, I need to go, I just go. There are people like Mel Robbins, who's a podcaster out there, who I think is astonishing, and I would always go, well, start by, instead of watching Traitors, Love Island, and certainly not watching the news or going to the pub, stick on a Mel Robbins podcast or go and watch some positive, not woo-woo positive. Do you know, hang on, I'm going to go back. I don't care if it's woo-woo positive. Just go and watch something and fill that void, fill that space, just to take you away from that horribleness.
And yes, and I agree. However, you've just used two justs, because it's really hard to change a behaviour that is up to now, rightly or wrongly, has been your life, whatever that is. So whether it's surrounding yourself with negativity of any sort, whether it's the news, whether it's, EastEnders, whether, anything, all of that, it becomes a habit. So I know of people, my brother, he was very much in a cycle of, he had real issues, mental health issues, and it was in a cycle of kind of self-destruction, I guess, I would call it. And he would, just the language he would use was very negative. It was very judgmental. The things he would watch on TV, everything. Just, he wouldn't necessarily speak to people that could lift him. He wasn't interested. He was in a very, very dark place. And sometimes, if I'm completely honest with you, I remember thinking, I can't help you.
Your brother.
Yeah. Some people would say that's because it's your brother. I disagree with that, because actually I do have generally an ability to, it doesn't matter who the person is. But what I recognised with him is that he needed, we talked about counselling earlier, he needed someone to really listen to what he got. He needed a platform to speak. And maybe it was because I was too close, but actually I'm used to working with people that have already made that step to want to do better, be better, have better. He wasn't even there. So maybe, actually thinking about it, he was in a place that you're talking about, where actually, the whole idea of just watching something that was more positive, absolutely, I would have loved him to do that. He was not there. He was not there at all.
Are we, as society or whatever, sometimes a little bit too, I don't know what the word is, soft, when people are in that place? Like I was in that place, and people could have told me all sorts of things. But what I probably, and I had to do it myself eventually, was the hard words. Sometimes you just got to use the hard words. And I'm not dismissing people in real crisis here. So, but
there is a difference, and I think that's the problem, isn't it? We don't want to generalise too much, because I think there are so many different levels. Mental health, and we've all got mental health, by the way, and that's a big bugbear of mine. We've all got mental health. It's just whether it's in good shape or bad shape, a bit like physical health. But when people have mental health conditions, or literally, or maybe their brain is wired differently, there's lots and lots of different things. But I agree with you, and I think, yes, I think I was once described by a very good friend of mine who started out as a client as lovely but brutal. And I think what she meant was that I don't have a problem with challenging my clients with a small c, but they're in a very different place generally to the kind of mental health issues that we've just been talking about. There is different. And I think if you can get to a place where you are able to have those conversations, yeah, absolutely. And that's the reason I don't I don't counsel. So I didn't do counselling, because when I was having counselling myself years and years ago, it was very much, so there's lots of different types, and the type I was involved with was person-centred. So it's very much about, okay, Lisa, where are you at right now today? Well, I couldn't speak. I didn't know even what they wanted me to say. So I used to, I didn't make stuff up, but I'd tell them what I thought they wanted to hear. I was a people pleaser, but I couldn't extract the words from my mouth and from my head that really would have helped me. I couldn't do it. I wasn't able to do it. I needed a prompt. I needed someone to help me along with that. So for me, person-centered counselling was not the thing. I just sat there and we talked about whatever else they wanted to talk about. I needed someone that would challenge me. And that's one of the reasons why I took the path I did, when I realised that I wanted to help people and empower people to be, do, and have better. Was actually being able to challenge them. So every client I have will say that actually they want to be challenged. As I said, with a small C, sometimes with a kitten glove, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I just allowed them to continue doing what they're doing. But it depends. It really depends on, again, it's about meeting people where they're at. And for some people, they're just not ready for that.
Okay. Just want to shift. I want to talk about relationships.
Okay.
You said, and you've said to me, and we've talked about, there are two things that drive you: fear and love.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been driven by fear of failure and whatever, and it's something I have to work with every day. You've helped me. Now, relationships and love are obviously key words. I believe I've always been able to see talent in somebody and help and try and inspire them to go and be better and better and better and better.
Yeah.
And I do, and I genuinely think that's what really drives me. The one thing I struggle with, even though the world I do, I struggle to be loved.
Okay.
I struggle to accept love, and therefore I struggle relationship-wise. Is that a thing?
Absolutely.
I'm going to go back to the thing again, and people are going to hate me for this. Is that a man thing, woman thing? Or is that a stop trying to stereotype, Cliff?
It's a thing.
Right.
It's just a thing. It is, and it's a feeling of unworthiness. So you're not worthy.
Are we back to childhood again?
Absolutely. I genuinely believe we are. So just to give some context, when going back a little bit, when I realised that sitting behind my computer screen back in 2012, when I was a HR consultant, was not going to work for me, and I actually went and did an NLP qualification. So neuro-linguistic programming. I did my practitioner level, absolutely loved it, but it was about me. I did it for me, and it was about raising my confidence and giving me some direction, and it absolutely did that. And so much so that I went back and did my master practitioner the year after, and that's when I also did my the master practitioner coach qualification as well at the same time. From that, it very much NLP talks about and our early years, we are like a sponge.
I know we can go and Google it.
Mm-hmm.
30 seconds. You've not even got 30 seconds. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro about the head, linguistic about the conversation, program is the process. Right.
So it's basically the conversations you have in your head on a regular basis that either come out of your mouth or actually stay in your head. Like, I'm not very good. I'm really rubbish at that. The way that NLP suggests that basically from 0 to being about 7, 8, it's not, we are like a sponge. We absorb everything that goes on around us, the words that are used to us, against us, around us, that we copy, we learn things. It could be, and some of that stuff is not harmful. Some of it is okay. It's where our beliefs are formed from. But likewise, some of that stuff sticks with us. And some of it we lose along the way. We have a belief in Santa. Because that's the easiest one to use. Why? Because we're just constantly told about it. It's quite a nice thing. And eventually we grow out of that. And hopefully with
Santa is real.
Absolutely. But with not too much damage, for instance. Likewise, if somebody is bullied or someone is told something, and sometimes it can just be once, but it can have such an impact that it remains with them. It gets lodged into our programming, if you like. But often it's stuff that's might not be said. It might not be said maliciously, but it might just be something that that is just repeated by the people that matter the most to you. And it might be things like, oh, you're no good at saving money. You'll never have any money. Just look at him spending his money again. And it becomes our story, if you like. And then that gets exacerbated because then maybe your boss might say it, or your friends say it because actually you're overdrawn again, or whatever. Or, when kids are bullied in the playground, something gets said and then it gets repeated, and they get triggered by it. So therefore their actions and their behaviours form around that belief. So that's where a lot of that. So the unworthiness that we talked about, of the lack of self-worth, I am not worthy of your love or your attention, has so many ramifications as an adult, so many.
So how do we help individuals within that relationship? I believe if you've got any chance of a relationship, you've got to love yourself first.
Absolutely, yeah.
So give us some bits, words of wisdom, words of advice of what people can do. I talk about habits every day and whatever. Do I love myself? Do I love getting up when I get up in the morning? No, it's hard. But within 2, 3, 5 minutes of getting out the door, I don't say I love myself, but I know somewhere inside me I feel good about myself because I've done it. I've done something that's hard. So give us...
First and foremost, it's worth remembering that your brain, our mind, does not know the difference between fact or fiction. Only what we repeatedly say, we tell it. So if we repeatedly tell ourselves or believe that we are not worthy, or that we're this, or we look in the mirror and we don't quite like the way that we look, or we're fat, or we're just not very fit, or whatever, some people would argue, yeah, but some of that might be true. It might be, but you know what? Tell yourself something different. Create a new story, actually. So when people talk about affirmations, when people talk about standing in front of the mirror and actually telling yourself that you love yourself, or I've done some, they call it mirror work, but I've done mirror work before, and I've done it with clients where I tried to get them to see something positive about themselves. Oh my goodness, it is amazing how many people can't even do that. And I always say, well, start with your eyes. Literally look at your own eyes in the mirror and decide, or look at your face and decide which bit of it do you actually like? Because that's the starting point. And it's really small steps. You are not going to wake up, if you are someone that has struggled with a feeling of unworthiness, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and go, that's it, I'm sorted. And I think that's the key to it, is it's a slow process. However, it's one that literally can take small steps, but you can make you get small wins along the way. So what I would say first and foremost is kind of listen to what you're telling yourself on a regular basis. What is going on inside your head? And then start to think about how you can change the language. So if you find yourself, you make a mistake at work and you tell yourself you're stupid, I can't believe I've done that. Stop. Don't say it. Try really hard not to say it. Change the language is so important. The language that we use to other people. Oh, I'm not very good at that. Don't say that. Try saying something different. Or one of my first clients ever walked into my consulting room and said, I don't think you're going to be able to help me. I'm a manic depressive. I've always been a manic depressive. I don't think there's much you can do. Looking back now, with the experience I have now, what I ought to have said is, I think you might be right, because we can have a chat, but I'm not entirely sure I can help you. And I didn't. I was naive and I was new to it, and I really wanted to save the world. Uninterestingly, session 3, he came back in and said, I bought a book on it, so I'm not coming again. Right, okay. The point is, the story he was telling himself was his reality, because he was refusing through fear to actually even begin to imagine another story could be told. So start with, and you've done this, start with, what do I want it to look like? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want my relationships to look like? Start with actually believing, even if it's just for a nanosecond, that it could actually look different. And then start to think about who's got, actually, and this is not about comparing, but look for kind of inspiration, if you like. And actually, I look at that couple and they seem, now, trust me, they won't have got it all sourced, but at least start to actually surround yourself with the type of thing that you actually are looking for. So if you're going to buy a car, for instance, and you might not believe that you're worthy of a car, but again, I would say, go and have a look at what car do you want? Get some clarity around what it is that actually what do you want life to look like? What do you want it to be like? Once you've got some clarity, trust me when I say you will begin, tentatively at first, to get some confidence in actually believing it. There is so much more I can talk about beliefs, but I can't today.
And I think you'll be back very soon. And we will set some time aside going forward, and we'll have some very definite. We'll create some content where we're dealing with beliefs, relationships, whatever, and we'll put some time in, and we'll put some real time in, and then people will be able to find it. So between now and then, where can people find you? Just where, if people want to find more about you, where do they find you, Lisa?
You can find me on my website, which is whiteapplethinking.co.uk. You can also find me on Facebook, Lisa Walker, White Apple Thinking, and also on Instagram, White Apple Thinking.
Thank you. Enjoyed that. I think there's lots more to come.
Okay.
But I think we covered what we want to cover today. Thanks,
Excellent.
Lisa.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Magical Mindset Podcast. Please subscribe, leave a review, share around your network. I'm Cliff Sewell. See you next time.